Okay, so it is about a week later, honestly, probably a week and a half, more than a week later. So here's 3 different of the vinegar jars up here on this cabinet that's in the corner of a room where it's normally dark and quiet and they don't get disturbed. And my amazing assistant Joan here is holding a light so that you all can see. So here's the first jar in the back, the one that I just showed in the past video. So here's what's happening. So I took off the cheesecloth to check on it, and you should check on it, every few days to see what's happening. And look what's happening. So it's tricky with the light here, but from the side, you'll see that there's almost like a white layer forming on top of the liquid. And then on the inside, from kind of some of the jostlings, the layer has gotten like bubbles and stuff on it, but look, it's kind of gelatinous and it's getting thick. So it's kind of like a young kombucha mother, kind of, but I don't want to disturb it too much, but that's what you want. So that's the mother of vinegar starting to form, and ideally it should always be kind of whitish. You shouldn't see any black or blue mold or anything like that. Sometimes inside the rim of the jar, above the surface of the liquid, you might get a little mold forming or something. And if that looks gross to you or bothers you, you can just get a rag or something and just wipe that off every once in a while. But it's really not an issue. Don't worry about it. So this jar is furthest along here in the back. Then this jar. Then this jar. So it is kind of silly to have small batches like this, but it also enables everyone to turn out a little different. So just for comparison, this one has not really started forming that gelatinous creature on the top. It's more like a very subtle whitish film on the top. It's very, very, very thin. It's so thin that it's hard for me to tell whether it is a mother of vinegar organism or kahm yeast, which I mentioned before, K-A-H-M. But I'll be able to find out as it matures, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then this one's, very little has even started happening in there. Just kind of the most subtle whitish layer. But definitely be smelling them. So it's like this back one, when I take the cheesecloth off and I smell it, it's like so strong. Like I start to get those really clear, deep vinegar aromas. And that's what you should smell. And that's a sign that that vinegar mother is really starting to transform the liquid much more in the vinegar direction. Okay, bye-bye. Okay, everybody, it is maybe 2 weeks, maybe a little bit more than 2 weeks later. And I have 2 jars here in front of me. So I have the first jar, that's kind of the antique blue glass. That was the first one I started. And the second jar, the third and fourth are still in the house. So this first jar has been going for, from the very beginning, I don't know, maybe it's been a month and a half or something. Wow, there's some maggots on there. I left the cheesecloth kind of loose the last couple of days. Some those fruit flies got in there. Just so you know, not a big deal. We'll clean that out. They're just on the rim. Alrighty. Anyway, this is really exciting. So this is great for you, bad for me, is that, so this jar, we have an example of a wonderful, beautiful, amazing mother of vinegar. And in this jar, we have what looks to be kahm yeast, an example of kahm yeast. So great for you guys that you all get to see both of them. Okay, so the first jar, I think it's done, but I'm going to show you what's going on. It's starting to rain out here, so I might have to bring this inside. Yeah, I want to show you the mother, which looks like it's starting to sink, like it may be done with its business. Ah, it's falling apart. All right, well, it fell apart. That's okay. So what you see here was a thing that was all over the surface of the liquid, and it's kind of slimy, slightly translucent, like a kombucha mother, and it's a beautiful mother of vinegar. The tan color is just the coloration from the pear solids. So technically a mother of vinegar is pretty whitish, translucent. So it was all smooth, and in the process of pulling it out, I kind of crumpled it up and it collapsed. But that's it. That's the mother of vinegar, and that's a really good sign. So what you would have seen as the mother of vinegar was in there. From the edge of the jar, you'll see it, and you'll see it over time thickening. It will get thicker as it grows, and that's a great indication that it's a mother of vinegar and not kahm yeast. So, I just smelled it. So the cabinet where this has been sitting has been smelling stronger and stronger of vinegar every day until it's starting to pour into the room, and it smells amazing. So I'm going to taste it at this point. You should be tasting it the whole process. I recommend, with all fermenting, taste your stuff throughout the whole process so that you can monitor how it changes, and that's how you'll learn, because you'll get a feel for the process itself. Okay. Oh my God. Oh my God, you guys. It is so good. Wow. This is better than I expected. Oh my gosh. Oh, it's so good. So it's got a really strong bite. So it should taste at this point like vinegar. Like, it shouldn't be like, oh, I don't know, it kind of tastes like vinegar-ish, but it kind of doesn't. I mean, on your tongue, you should be like, whoa, I just drank a spoonful of vinegar. That was sharp. Holy cow. But that's what you want, because that's an indicator that there's a high level of acetic acid in here. That means there was a high level of sugars that got converted into alcohol sugars and then converted into acetic acid. And that's what you want. That's what affects the strength. pH-wise, the acidity strength of the vinegar. So a strong vinegar is preserved. It preserves itself. I'm going to drink it again. Wow. Wow, 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 wow. So you'll get that sharp taste of the vinegar, and then you'll also get some of the other flavors of the fruit itself, like the pear, which is really good. It's like a little bit of sweetness. Holy mackerel, that is so good. So yeah, I'm just going to like scoop out these little teeny maggots around the rim. And then at this point, this vinegar is done. It's ready to strain. So I'm going to strain this all through a cheesecloth or something to get rid of the solids. And I just want the liquids. And I will bottle it, and it's done. Holy cow, it's so good. Okay, so over here we have something on the surface of the liquid that looks a little bit different, only in that, you see, it didn't make something thick. It didn't make something thick enough for me to like pick up. But sometimes it can be hard to tell the difference between kahm yeast and a young mother of vinegar. But kahm yeast will never gradually thicken over time. It'll remain this really thin layer on the surface of the liquid. So this looks more like kahm yeast, and that just means, you know, there's controversy. Like some people, there it is right there. Some people when they're making vinegar say, oh, that's what you don't want. Kahm yeast is an indicator that the ferment is going not in the direction you want it to. It's not making good vinegar. That's kind of the common belief. I don't often get kahm yeast, but gosh, just last year, I think it was American persimmon and banana, because I had dumpstered a bunch of bananas, or helped someone process a bunch of dumpstered bananas, so I had some extra banana sugars, so I added them in. That's why it's a weird combo. Anyway, I made this vinegar, and it developed kahm yeast on the top instead of a mother of vinegar. And I was like, oh man, I'm bummed. I thought this was going to go great. These are all such sugar-rich fruits. I like left it in a cabinet for like another month and forgot about it. I took it out of the cabinet because I had forgotten about it, and then tasted it, and it was freaking amazing. It was awesome vinegar. So it had still turned into extra sharp, fantastic vinegar without forming a vinegar mother, just with the kahm yeast on top. So that goes to say there's no hard and fast rules. You just have to taste it. I really need 2 hands for this. I'll be back. Okay, so I got some of this on my spoon, and you can see that these liquids are fairly translucent. They're not going to be really dark colored. Okay, so I'm going to give this one a little tasty. Ooh, oh wow, that's good too. Whew. Okay, this one actually tastes excellent also. They taste actually very similar, almost identical, which is fascinating. So I'm getting a really sharp acetic acid bite, a vinegar bite to it, and a strong pear flavor. It actually tastes like it's done also. So that's great. This one is a success. So clearly it didn't matter about the vinegar mother. So I think I might strain both of these. So what you don't want to taste though, if there's like kahm yeast on top, particularly also if there's like mold, white mold and blue mold is never good. But if there's anything funky on the top and you're just like, I don't know if this is going right, and you taste it and the liquid tastes bland or mild, that's not a good sign. So usually that happens when there's not enough sugars in the solution to begin with, meaning that the fruit concentration wasn't strong enough to begin with. So there were very few sugars to get converted into alcohol sugars to then get converted into acetic acid. So then you end up with a very low level of acetic acid, a very weak vinegar, which is not well preserved. So it's usually those low... So that would happen if you like added fruit and then added a bit too much water, so the fruit was watered down and your solution just wasn't very strong. Then often you're going to get something that's like kind of got a funky flavor, doesn't taste like really sharp vinegar. It might not taste rotten. It might taste somewhere in between. So that's kind of what I typically don't go for. I'm going for a pretty strong vinegar. So this is amazing to me that you can make like really strong, sharp tasting vinegar from diluted fruit, right? This is like half water, half fruit. To this day, it boggles my mind. Boggles my mind. I've been doing this for so many years, you guys. Like, I've made gallons upon gallons upon gallons upon gallons upon gallons upon gallons of vinegar over the years. Great vinegar. And it still boggles my mind. From, like, these are just all scraps that would end up in the compost. And this is vinegar that is so delicious and so fancy. I mean, you could sell it at farmer's market, probably. To the fancy restaurants. I'm so excited. This came out so good! Okay, gonna strain it. Okay, so just so you can see, here's what I'm pouring it through. I just found a ceramic bowl, a plastic colander, like for pasta, colander, and a cheesecloth. And I'm just pouring a whole jar, like all the solids, into that. Often when I'm doing this, because I'm traveling and my possessions are minimal, I'm usually just using cotton bandanas, which are a very tight weave. And it drives me nuts because, like, often vinegar fruit stuff is so gelatinous and thick that it takes so long to strain through a really tight weave bandana cloth. Like, it takes days, and it makes me crazy. And I start trying to, like, squeeze it and wring it by hand, and I make a mess, and it makes me bonkers. So right now I'm trying this cheesecloth, which is the one we use for our goat cheese, and see how that goes. And it is going really fast, which is nice. I'm not using the super cheapy cheesecloths. Let me show you. One moment, like these. I still don't know what function in the entire world these are good for. They offend me that these are even manufactured. This does nothing. It doesn't keep out bugs from things. It's not tight enough to actually hang any sort of cheese whatsoever. I have no freaking clue what these are actually for. So that would be way too loose because all your solids are just going to glob through there. But yeah, this seems to be going really well. You could double this up if you wanted a better and even finer strained vinegar. So all that's up to you. I do recommend trying not to use metal paraphernalia as much as possible because vinegar, acetic acid, will corrode metal very strongly. So if you're pouring through a metal sieve, a strainer, and you're just pouring it once and it's quick, it's probably not really a problem, but if it's going to be sitting in the strainer for days at a time, such that the vinegar is in contact with metal for a long time, not so good. Unless it's stainless steel, unless it truly is stainless steel, that's fine. Which also means don't store your vinegars in metal containers. Glass, ceramic, plastic. I don't store them in plastic, but sometimes plastic lids, like the screw caps, any metal screw caps will corrode terribly over time on a vinegar jar. So I usually use plastic screw caps on glass bottles. Okay, so once the liquid is strained out of there, I'm just pouring it into a jar. And you can see that it's kind of cloudy, kind of gold, but the solids are gone. That's the finished vinegar. I'm just going to keep doing that. So just if it's helpful to see, the bulk of this vinegar has dripped. So this was 1/2 gallon jars worth of vinegar mush. Strained, I'm getting a little bit over half that volume of liquid, but there's always quite a lot of liquid left in these goop balls. So I do personally find it worth it to go ahead and hang this for like a day and just let all the liquid drip out. So I'll show you, like right here, I've set up kind of similar to the way that I hang cheese. Just some little setup, just any way you can figure out to just like hang your little mush bundle so that it's continuing to drip. I'm catching the rest of the vinegar in that jar. Now, just for a day, just to get all the last little bits of vinegar out of there, because it's such good stuff. Such good stuff. So in general, these vinegars, all my fruit vinegars, I find them so delicious that I find them drinkable. So often the way I consume them the most is, especially in the summertime, anybody who is ever like living rustically and you don't have ice, if you don't have a freezer with ice, iced cold beverages are really nice when it's really freaking hot out. But in lieu of that, I find that like these vinegar waters are so refreshing, and they just like have the same refreshing, satisfying experience where I'll just get a cup of cold water and dash some of this vinegar in the water, and it just makes a really, really refreshing, delicious drink. Also on salads, I just like drench them on top of greens that I'm eating for salads. I mean, my God, I go through them so quickly actually because I just find them so delicious. So once this is all dripped, I'll find glass bottles to store it in. Ideally with plastic screw lids are what I like the most, or a cork, but you definitely need to store it someplace airtight, because if you left these open air for a long time, what will happen is like that mother of vinegar will form again often. And something about that happening, I don't know what it is, but some metabolism process keeps happening where somehow the acetic acid gets broken down. So if you left this open air for a long time, you check on it one day and taste it, and it wouldn't taste like vinegar anymore. I don't understand exactly what that's about, but I've had it happen to me before. So as soon as the vinegar seems done and tastes like really strong, sharp vinegar, go ahead and bottle it with caps on it so that it's sealed, and then it will last for years. I've traveled around with these vinegars for years, in storing them in very hot conditions and cold. They really have a remarkably great shelf life for clearly not being as high on the or actually as low on the pH scale as acidic as like the distilled white vinegar you would buy from the store. So yeah, they're fantastic. They're fantastic. I don't know what else to say about them other than they are incredible. You can see the color now. So nice. Okay, so there they are. Some of my first bottles from this year's vinegar. So this was actually 1/2 gallon jar made this and some more. I drank a couple glasses of it. It was delicious. So good bit. You can see here I've got some nice glass jars with plastic lids, which is ideal. I pulled out a dusty bottle of my American persimmon with a pinch of banana vinegar from last year that I'm still drinking through. It's so good. So I'm often using wine bottles like this. I'm obsessed with glass wine bottles with screw tops on whenever I'm in an urban area on recycling day. I go around and I go through everybody's recycling on the streets for liquor bottles and wine bottles with screw tops. Freaking love them. Don't like having to buy new tops. So these, these are made out of metal. Let me open it. You can see how chaotic the table is. So yeah, these are metal, and this has been on here since the winter. You can see it's not really starting to corrode much yet, but you got to keep an eye on them. Just keep an eye on them. One thing you can do to make them last longer is cut a little square of wax paper, like the kind of wax paper you use for baking and stuff. Put the wax paper on there, and then screw this on over the wax paper, and that'll allow a metal lid to last longer. Eventually the vinegar will eat through that as well. But so that's it. Happy vinegar making. Okay, everybody, that's it for vinegar making. I hope this was helpful. Hope you learned some stuff. I know it's a long one, but hey, it's detailed. Yeah, it's been several years since I've taught any vinegar and wine making workshops, so now I never have to again, because everything I know is in this video. You know what's in my brain. Okay. If you don't know already, you can support these videos that I'm making, that I slave over painstakingly, day after day, for you. You can support me making them if you go over to my Patreon, patreon.com/stormsofdaylight. For a couple bucks a month, you can support me to continue making these videos, which is so helpful and so wonderful, and also like vote on what kind of topics you want to see more of. Or you can also join a higher tier and get extra videos. So that's all I got to say. Goodbye.